What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Universal Mastery. So what I do on my channel is I break down the occult sciences to a very extremely practical level so that you can use them and apply them in your day-to-day life and get real, actual results. Okay, now what I'm doing on today's video is continuing off a series that I'm going to complete within the next month. And this series is on the tunnels of Set. So what I'm doing is I'm going through each of the tunnels, starting from path number 1, going all the way up to 22. And I'm reading the tunnels off from a book by Kenneth Grant that is called The Night Side of Eden. And the tunnel that we are going to be covering today is going to be called Zamradiel. Okay, so if you want to know a little bit more about this tunnel coming from the book, The Night Side of Eden, which I haven't seen anyone make any videos about yet, that's why I'm putting this information out there, then stay tuned for the rest of the video. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is definitely make sure you go and you check out my Patreon. On my Patreon, I have exclusive content. Some of that content is going to be geared towards actual spiritual practices that you can perform. What I do on my Patreon is I do the practices myself on video. I break it down and I teach you how to do it simultaneously. So for example, there's a video that's called How to Do an Invocation. Very important to learn. Then the other bit of the content is going to be geared towards educational entertainment, which is going to be a video that's very similar to this, where it's entertaining, but you're also getting a lot of value from it at the same time. Okay, so where you're going to be able to find the Patreon is if you go to the description, you're going to click the drop down. It's going to be that very first link at the top. Okay, it says My Patreon right next to it. In order to gain access to the exclusive content, you have to at least be a tier 2 member or up in order to be, in order to be a tier 2 member, it literally costs $9.95 a month, and that is a reoccurring payment. So there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be able to afford that, especially with the value that I have on my Patreon. There's tons of value on there, and that's a fact. Okay, so as you go up in tiers, the benefits increase as well. I'll let you check that out for yourself. And with that being said, I would love to give a special shout out to the top tier members of the Patreon. Their names are going to be mentioned right below that Patreon link. So huge shout out to you, ladies and gentlemen. Other than that, let's go right into this video. First thing first, I just want to mention, if you are new to this series, definitely start with the very first video. So start with path number 1 and then work your way all the way up to 22 in order. That's going to be very important to understanding exactly what the tunnels of Set are. Okay, so other than that, let's go right into it. So here we go. Zamradiel. The 17th path transmits the influences of the lovers. So that would be the archetypal lovers when it comes to the tarot deck. Its tunnel is sentineled by Zamradiel, who is evoked by vibrating his name in the key of D. The sound should be accompanied by a horse combination. His sigil should be painted in a tint approximating new leather yellow upon a versia of mauve. His number is 292, that of TZRB. The Raven. The black commences its predatory flight. BTZR, a metathesis of TZRB, signifies gold, the metal associated with the twins Set Horus. Set's totem being the black bird and that of Horus the golden falcon. The earlier twins, however, were Set and Anubis, the golden jackal, who, with his dark shade, haunted the desert of mummies, i.e. the astral shells left by those who had made the crossing and transcended the abyss. Interesting. The sigil of Zamradiel is composed of a lunar crescent pierced by an arrow shot from a bow, both ends of which terminate in the letter G. The transfixed moon is the crucified flesh. The crucified are those who have made the crossing of the abyss. The letter G, Gamel, signifies the camel, the ship of the desert, the vehicle by which the crossing is achieved. It is the letter of the high priestess. This tunnel concentrates the influence of Set via the black power zone, excuse me, the black power zone, Binah, that receives its light from the stellar sphere Chokmah and raise it downwards through the abyss. The 17th Kala is thus strongly charged with the atmosphere of death and of death, both of which have close affinity with the lovers. The number 292 is also that of Kozar, which, as suggested in Cult of the Shadow, is probably connected with the name Choronzon, a corrupt form of it. The symbol of Kozar resembles the astrological sign of Neptune, and according to Blavatsky, Secret Doctrine 2:356, Kozar is called Neptune by the uninitiated. So, Kozar is called Neptune by the uninitiated. It is the symbol of Atlantean magic, and its attribution to the second power zone, Chokmah, is highly significant because Chokmah receives an influx direct from Pluto, being Keter. Michael Bertox observes that Pluto being correlated to Neptune is pure sexuality, which in the Plutonic sphere is psychic and magical. This energy, which is called libido, is the most powerful force in the world and cannot be isolated with magical methods. It is also the foundation of the various nature fields of force, such as light, gravitation, electromagnetism, and it is a fact that the base subatomic particle, being a functional photon, is in reality libido in an elementary form. This is the energy that powers the lovers of the 17th path, but in the tunnel beneath it, it has been transformed into the RPVAH, or drug of death, that is represented by the black bird of Set and the black pig of Typhon. Kozar means a pig. This creature was adopted as a symbol of the great work by the Typhonians because it was the only animal known to devour human excrement. The pig is symbolic, and so is the excrement, for it is not anal refuse that is veiled by this totem, but the blood of the moon, the human female flux in its dark phase. The symbolism was carried over into solar cults of later ages, and at the time of the vernal equinox, the god Khunsu is depicted in the orb of the full moon, bearing in his arms the sacrificial pig. The imbibition of the black wine of the moon prepared the initiate for the disintegration or crucifixion at Eastern time, and this made possible the crossing over into the world of spirit or non-being, and that's exactly what it's like crossing the abyss. Crossing death is you have to become formless and you will disintegrate. The Gnostics depicted Kozar in the form of a serpent whose stellar representative was Draco. The undulation of the serpent was an image of the periodic feminine flow. The mystery of this tunnel is glyphed by the sigil of its sentinel with the lunar crescent transfixed by the arrow. As Massey has shown, the first bow was drawn by the genetrix, and it came full circle in the cycle of gestation, hence the bow of Neith and the arrow of the goddess Seti. In Zamradiel's sigil, the moon is young and has not yet been attained the fullness of gestation, which occurs after the lovers have emerged from the city of the pyramids Binah into the desert of Set. I'm going to read that again. In Zamradiel's sigil, the moon is young and has not yet attained the fullness of gestation, which occurs after the lovers have emerged from the city of the pyramids Binah into the desert of Set. Interesting. The relevant verse from CCXXXXI reads, "Here then beneath the winged Eros is young, delighting in the one and the other. He is Osiris, between Asi, Isis, and Nephthys. Osiris is the mummy, the dead one who is reborn in the spirit world, having been conceived by Isis and brought to birth by Nephthys. The magical city of this Kala is understandably by location here symbolized by the mummy Osiris and the risen youth Asi. This dual deity sometimes appears as the brothers and sometimes as the lovers. It is from this tunnel that dark forces emerge and seep from the abysses of non-being, permeating the power zones of manifestation and the shadows of their absence. This doubling or dappling with light and shade is typified by the symbolic hybrids such as the magpie, the penguin, the piebald, the parrot, the zebra, in fact, all dappled, and chameleons. And chameleon-like creatures that have the apparent power of transformation. That's really funny because when I was in my process of crossing the abyss, I came across a zebra. And I live in Florida, and it was so random. I mean, I was walking down this path, and I came across this guy's backyard. He had a really big backyard, and he had a zebra. He literally had a zebra. And I saw that. And I was like, what, Kenneth Grant is talking about. So there's a lot of real symbolism here, just to put that out there. The order of the Qliphoth ascribes to this realm. The order of the Qliphoth ascribed to this realm is the Tzalalirmion, the Changers. The supreme totem of this tunnel is the hyena, and this realm is haunted by votaries of the Bultu, or spectral hyena. Its cult is known to have existed in the Paleolithic age. It brought its totem out of Africa and spread it secretly all over the earth. It had its astral source in the tunnel beneath the path of the twins, the lovers, and was reflected onto the earth plane at a place in Africa named Kabulitulo. The name means literally the shadow, Ka, and the spectre or spirit, Loa, of the hyena, Bultu, the magical vibration of the cult, was concentrated in the mantram Beltugan. Excuse me. A verb meaning I transform myself into a hyena. This was the atavism assumed by the spectral shape that formed itself of the elements of the 17th Kala when the twin powers of love and death were fused into one image. Its Qliphothic reflex was sucked out of space in the form of this creature by an adept who knew the sacred alignments and who vibrated the mantram that evoked it. This was achieved by fusing the twin serpents, Ab and Ad, within the body of the priestess dedicated to the dark god of this Kala whose name is now lost. This cult of the spectral hyena persisted when all other forms of its god had perished, and certain magicians and dreamers have received intimations of its existence through the centuries. Dr. John Dee, 1526 through 1608, who first called it down from the spaces of death in historic times, named it Choronzon. Aleister Crowley, who contacted in our own times, also called it Choronzon, while H.P. Lovecraft sensed it as the monstrous and amorphous slime known as Yog-Sothoth. According to a secret grimoire, the beast was called down not from known space, but from the cells between them, while the Bultu drums beat offbeat rhythms. Similarly, in the latter, Petro writes of voodoo, in which the cult survived under another name. The alignments of the secret vevers flowed between the cardinal points, not through them. An entity appeared in answer to the call and crystallized about itself the spectral anatomy peculiar peculiar to the Boltu totem. It presided at a Sabbath within the tunnels of the earth, and then it vanished. Nor did the beast appear again even during the dark dynasties of Kem, when traffic with non-human entities was secretly undertaken in the cults of Tart and Set, having concentrated the essence of the Boltu within its eidolon or spectre. It secreted a subtle sperm that combined with the lifeblood of its consort to produce a magnetic salve, thus sealing the fire of the woman with that of the beast in a single substance. The time being right and the space marks being established, a violent magical storm raged in the region of Kabutuloa, where this monstrous rite was enacted. Ceaseless rains are said to have fallen in places that were rarely rained upon, and violent electrical disturbances in the atmosphere obliterated all traces of the event. During the deluge, constant lightnings flashed and, penetrating to the caverns beneath the earth, struck the bride of the beast as she writhed in its embrace. Her body was instantly burnt to a cinder, and a small black stone slipped from her thighs. The two vital oils, fused at incredible heat, produced a talisman of incalculable power. The fire that blent the twin serpents of life and the bestial and the divine set its seal upon the stone in the shape of a curious device, not unlike the sigil of Zamradiel, and a certain secret symbol known to have been used in the times of Atlantis in connection with the worship of Chozar. This mystical chronograph thereafter became the sigil of the Boltu, the seal adopted by the cult through succeeding aeons, and it is said to exist at the present time in a secret sanctuary of voodoo known as the Vili Ox Champs. The tunnel of Zamradiel is under the aegis of the forces of Shugal Karanzan, in their voodoo forms of Baron Samedi and Gaud Neru. The Baron represents the Saturnian. The Baron represents the Saturnian aspect. Another of his names is Symmetry, the place of the dead or of those who make the crossing into non-being. Hence, Baron Samedi is also known as Matri Carrefour or Carfax, master of the crossroads. For the junction of the four ways, the spirits of the living crossing over into the realm of non-being and vice versa. Gudi, on the other hand, concentrates the eros libido element of the current represented by the lovers, their stellar vehicle in Gemini, their planetary seat Mercury, the god who guides the dead in the underworld in the form of Shugal, whether as a fox, dog, jackal, or wolf, according to the appropriate local phonotypes. Gudi Nebu represents the dual polarities Ab and Od in the form of the life-giving odic force and the Obia, or the abhorrent Ganin Gub. Gudi approximates the Egyptian Khonsu, who is associated with the black pig or boar of Set. As previously mentioned, the name Nibhu, meaning Lord, derives from the Egyptian Neb, our Nib or Nab. Lord Gudi is ascribed to the northern quarter, which in the present context is above Saturn and the stellar sphere, in the place of Dath, buried deeply in the desert gulfs inhabited by the jackal of Set and the pig of Khonsu. The Boltu is neither human nor animal, but an astral manifestation that feeds like a vampire upon the essential oils of its victims. As the spectral hyena, it fascinates by its glance and then slakes its lust for blood. As the Ganin Gub, or serpent of Ob, it drinks the actual plasma of its victim's vitality mingled with the menstruum of the priestess who has drained it into her chalice. Similarly, Baron Samedi draws sustenance from his victims in manly forms, thus perpetuating a lingering half-life in dimensions outside the range of normal consciousness, but accessible to those who know the sacred alignments and who know how to vivify the sigil of the Boltu, the sound of whose mantram can open the pylons of Shugal. The dual nature of the symbolism associated with the Zamradiel, according with the nature of the Boltu, which, being of another dimension, is neither flesh nor spectry, white nor black, human nor beast, but a combination of hybrid entities far surpassing in horror those described by the ancients as the products of unnatural congress. In the offbeat rhythm of the Boltu drums, the sensitive ear may detect the mantram of ultimate abomination, the hideous symbol of which resembles the hyena, fabled to have sprung from the union of the ravening desert jackal and the lioness of Ethiopia. The hyena is symbolic of all half-lives, all twilights, and all crepuscular states of consciousness. Crepuscular states of consciousness. I'm going to screenshot that because I want to look that up. Okay. All cross-breeds, interweaving, coiling, worming their ambiguous images into flesh, and branding with the mark of the Boltu, the myriad forms it chooses as its vehicle. Primordial atavisms are unsealed by the beat of the Boltu drums, and, if used in connection with the tunnel of Zamradiel, in the key of D, will snare the mind in the dark web of the rhythms. Whether heard from near or far, those that hear it are compelled to attend the Sabbath over which Choronzon presides. This accounts in a phenomenal sense for the ominous appearances and banshees. The legendary beings ascribed to this path in Liber 777. In the earliest African myths, Ordo the Tempest has affinities with the 17th Kala. On his feast day, he appears in the shape of a monster in a human form with face and lips smeared with blood. He bestows and screams like a fierce wind. The priest celebrates his mass in sacred groves where, concealed from the eyes of the uninitiated, they stimulate his banshee howlings by the rapid twirling of a wooden clapper attached to a string. In the voodoo system, the Marsas, or twins, are symbolized by the Vifer, which incorporates the three pillars of the Tree of Life. In the Cult of the Shadow, I have reproduced an illustration of this Viver by Michael Burdox, who has added the cross baton of the magical Saturn, or Gudi Nibhu, so as to produce the model for the pathways of the Voltigeurs, as well as pathways for the secret schools of the voodoo initiation. This is of vital importance, for it demonstrates the points at which the leapers behind the tree traverse the gulfs of space without using the tunnels of Set, thus jumping the intricacies as they leave one dimension and enter another. The spectral color of this path is reddish-gray, inclined to mauve. Gray tinged with red suggests the sphere of the stars, suffused with the blood of Isis, Kali, Mars. The inclination to mauve or lavender shows the movement of the feminine stellar current in the direction of death. According to Crowley, lavender is attributed to death. Okay. All right, and that's going to wrap that up. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. Obviously, there's a lot of powerful information on here, so you might need to watch it a couple times to fully let it soak in. But other than that, once again, I'm going to wrap it up. Definitely hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell. Hit the subscribe button. I love to see my subscribers go up. Definitely make sure you also go check out the Patreon. You're going to find the link for that at the very first link in the description. At the very top says my Patreon right next to it. Then go to the second link below. It's going to take you to the Facebook community. Once I get 50 people in there, I'm going to be posting consistently in the form of written and pictorial quotes. And other than that, I'm going to wrap it up here. Have a wonderful rest of the day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.